welcome to the Founders Story Session 3.
You have to buy expertise and you have to buy speed, right? With capital comes speed. You can hire a team. If you build everything yourself, you're just going to be too slow. When we approach investors, it's all about, for us, or for me, it's all about storytelling, right?
Yeah.
You have to tell a good story that they can verify.
When it doesn't click with the investor, he never tried the product or whatever. I think that's a red flag. So we went through an accelerator program later on.
Okay.
And the biggest downside is basically you give away a lot of equity.
Yep.
So that's definitely, if the accelerator is good and they have a good network, they can introduce you to angel investors, can help you build this network there.
You know, fundraising is sales, and you have to be very, very focused when you talk to investors about your vision, about your team, and when you want to achieve what milestones are critical for your company.
And the founder also wants to see your excitement. Like the founders, they want to partner with investors who believe into the vision.
The one thing that I will say, you have to plan for scale. If you don't plan for scale, at one point people will stop giving you money.
We'll be back in September. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 4th episode of The Founder Story. And as we have some traditional guests here coming back, you probably all know what's going to come now. Any of you have any idea? If not, that's a good sign because you have a heck of a lot newcomers, and welcome everybody once again to the 4th episode of The Founder Story. And some are still arriving. That is okay. I can assure you, you have arrived. That is good. But I'm glad that Google Maps is the preferred apps. Where else better would it be than here? So again, welcome everybody. And as I said, in a good old digital native fashion, some of you might probably know what's going to come now. And which is a selfie. So here, all of you, raise your hands. And oh my gosh, this room is getting bigger and bigger. I think the wide angle really has to make its magic here. Why am I doing this? Because it's not only because I'm personally a digital native, but here we are today in a digital native community. We have a lot of founders here today who have built their company on a digital-first vision. And what those founders like about this, you can actually already see it on the hashtag, hashtag Founders Story GCP. And we encourage you today to do the same. Take a lot of pictures, post a lot of your thoughts, share your insights, share what you found valuable, and also give us feedback what you like or maybe what you think it can be improved. Because only through the community we have today, we have managed to grow it to the size what we have in this room. And I can tell you, all newcomers, how it started. It was basically this row in the front. Don't worry, I'm not going to pull you on stage. And how this is evolving, like there's a lot of great things happening out of this community, because if you see some people are even asking on social, how do I make sure I don't miss out on these ones in the future? And Federico answered, the first step, you must become a startup founder, then I can introduce you to the right Googlers. Federico, who don't know him yet, he's actually quite a regular visitor here of the Founder Story, and he's very active, and it seems like Federico is already building a side hustle out of this event. So Federico, next time before you do this, let's partner up. I'm sure we find a way. So again, share your thoughts, share your ideas, because this is really a great community we have brought together. And once again, for those who are first time here, welcome again. And the Founder Story was born really from founders to founders, with the intention, with the idea to build a community locally for companies who are disruptors of other industry, because you have all made the bet to use digital to build your company. And by doing so, you inevitably disrupt other industry. So let me tell you about a co-founder here. This co-founder here is actually from Basel. And this gentleman here was born in about 1887. And with the age of 4, he immigrated together with his siblings to the US. By the age of 30, he has settled in the city of Los Angeles, California, today, where you have a lot of digital native startups popping out left and right every day. But back then, that wasn't the Silicon Valley as we know today. Back then, this gentleman here was selling metal spare parts to music instrument producers to produce their instruments in return. Later, this became the company called Rickenbacher Manufacturing Company. This gentleman here, his name is Adolf Rickenbacher. Hands up, who of you know Adolf Rickenbacher? A co-founder from Basel. Does any of you, probably because you don't know him yet, also probably don't know what he's famous for? He's not famous for selling metal spare parts to a music manufacturing company. He, in fact, is the inventor of the e-guitar as we know today. Let me introduce you to another gentleman here on the right-hand side. This gentleman was born about 55 years later. He went off to become one of the most renowned and famous e-guitarist player in the modern pop music history, and is regarded as one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century today. Hands up, anyone who has an idea who this gentleman is. Can anyone say the name? Jimi Hendrix. And for those who don't know who Jimi Hendrix is, if you have not noticed, the music at the entrance hall was all Jimi Hendrix. So why am I telling you the story today of Adolf Rickenbacher and Jimi Hendrix? Because the idea here is that one person who started off providing a technology and a product has not necessarily seen maybe what this product can evolve to. And it was musicians, artists, magicians like Jimi Hendrix who really pushed the possibility of the technology given to him. Let me show you our musicians we have lined up in the founder story. We have a great, great community here of founders, brave founders, who took the technology which was given into their hands and believed that they can do something magical with it. They can create masterpieces to touch people's heart, to make people more efficient, and to save people's lives. Today, specifically, I'm very proud of you to introduce you one of the 5 pillars we identified. Because those founders, as you saw before, they always came to us and say, well, we always struggle somewhere in our business. We wished we had someone to talk to. We hoped that someone out there could give us the insight how to tackle these challenges. But when we dig deeper with those founders and we sat down and asked them questions, they all of them turned out to have other superpowers in other areas. Areas which you see here in those 5 pillars. So while some founders struggle with some pillars, they always thrive in other strengths. So this gave us the idea, let's bring those founders together, let's put them all in the room and have them share their stories, what they went through, how they struggled, and how they came out of it. Because they have a lot to share in their founder story. Today, I'm very happy to have founders who claimed that building a great product was their initial first superpower when they started off with their companies. And it is definitely very true still today when they're thriving in their industries. So for the regulars who usually come here in the other 3 episodes, they know usually we just introduce them, we welcome them on stage, and then we start the panel discussion. But we also prepare our panelists also with some fun facts. And today, I want to switch things up a little bit. So we're going to introduce you some fun facts about this founder who's going to come next on stage. And you can just raise your hands whether you think it's true or false. because founders come with all sorts of crazy profiles, sometimes things we don't even think of, and I think that gives it a little bit of a human touch. So the first founder is actually, so here's the fact, comes from a founder's family, and which is not very crazy, but the founder story, which today is a very normal thing to do, goes all the way back to 1957, where his grandfather already founded a company. Only recently, they successfully exited the company, and since from that generation on, he got the founder's bug and has founded his own company. So raise your hands, think that this is a true story or just something we made up because we think we're making it a founder story today, so we make you everything believe that it's just about founders. Raise of hands, who do you think that story is true? Okay, yeah, a little bit shy at first, but some people still believe. Yes, it's actually true. So this founder, in fact, you can find a LinkedIn post on his profile later where he was talking about how proud he felt by his grandfather building up this company, and by doing so, learning all the goods and bads and providing that psychological safety to him to later on become a founder himself. So this founder today, and later we will hear about what his company is doing, was founded in 2014, is growing to 10 employees today, and since 2017, they have been doubling their revenue year over year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Andrea Fossati. Welcome. So the next founder. Actually, I have a bouquet of fun facts to pick from, so that's why I'm thinking which one I should use. So this founder found that being a founder is so hard that we need to come up with a side hustle. So this founder has started to figure out how to make olive oil by yourself and to produce your own olive oil. And actually, in fact, this founder did it so greatly, so perfectly, that now the revenue of making olive oil has exceeded the revenue which comes in from the startup itself. You might have seen this olive oil in Coop, in Migros, and everywhere you go, you might have come across it. Hands up, who thinks this story might be even true? So there's a lot of trust in the olive making skills of that founder. In fact, that founder is making its own olive oil, but luckily, the startup is still so successful that she can focus on the stage. Danielle has founded her company only in 2020, but is growing significantly, also now being at the size of 10 employees, but working together today already, and we will hear later what she's actually doing, because this really touches my heart, her mission. They work with over 50 patient organizations across the world, amongst others, the American Cancer Society. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Danielle Ralic. Welcome. So the next founder. What should I pick? So this founder actually holds a master in physics from the ETH, and that's actually true. Like that's not even a fun. People are like, no. So he holds a master's in physics from the ETH. That's where he learned the thank you. Yes, that's true. And he learned there the love of math, right? And as we all know, sometimes studying in the ETH can be a bit lonely, and you seek love life out there. But today he's very proud to say that he's dating someone who is in the board of directors of a dating app, just to catch up with time. So do you think that could be any story of someone from ATH, or you think that's some lonely souls out there like, yeah, I wish it could be me. So hands up, who thinks that story might be true or not? Yeah, some people are like, way too crazy, but I just vote for it. Well, it's actually true. It's actually true. And this is also a life of a founder, right? You never know where this journey takes you to. So this founder has started his company at 2013 already. Founded it together with one of the co-founders of what today we know as Digitech Galaxus. They grow to 25 employees. And last year, they have grown their revenue by 80% year over year and have doubled their their assets under management. So it's a fintech company. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Felix Niederer. Felix. So Felix, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you which dating app it's going to be, but congratulations. And so
You asked for fun facts.
I definitely was entertained when I received that fact. I was like, wow, I learned to know you from a different angle. That is beautiful. So jokes aside, so you all are product founders from a digital native company. So do you mind going through the rounds and quickly tell us, as the audience, what your company is doing?
So we at Parquery basically have a software for image analysis, and we apply it to city environments. So in particular, we started off with parking. We are now going into also traffic and pedestrian flow, and everything is done using existing cameras and applying our software to it.
So we're Ancora.ai, and we help cancer patients and oncologists find clinical trials because unfortunately not a lot of people get the chance to access them. And we're doing that using natural language processing.
And we are True Wealth. We are an online wealth management company, also known as Robo Advisory. And our mission is to help you guys invest your money and do that in the most simple fashion.
Thank you very much. So you all are builders by heart. You have created this company not just as a construct, but also the actual product you have delivered to the market. And so to start off the question, usually what we hear also is that when you build a product, it doesn't go the same way as you plan it to be. So how much has your product, what it is available today, pivoted from the initial product you have started working on? Maybe I'm going to start with you, Andrea.
Yeah. So on our side, we had quite a big pivot right at the start. So I was with my co-founder since 2013, and we started off with the physiotherapy software. So it was quite off. So we had some grant from ETH. We started working on it. We had a very cool product, but we found out after a few months that there was no market for it, completely zero. And then we said, what shall we do? We still have this half grant from ETH. There is no point in just wasting it. And then randomly one day we had this idea, well, let's try to solve some other problem which is more existing because we actually face it ourselves. And that's why we went into the parking industry and trying to help people manage this in a better way. So that was a pretty large pivot, I would say.
So you went to pretty much from a medtech company to now a mobility tech company, pivoted. So how hard was it for you to pivot to that direction, or was it?
Well, software-wise, we just threw everything away and started from scratch, obviously. But yeah, I think it was a clear choice. Like, either we stop, because, yeah, as I said, we really found out that it was just too hard to market, or we tried to find something else. So in the end, it was, let's say, it was mentally hard to recognize that what we were doing actually was a bit useless. But at the same time, I think, we made a good choice and we are now in the right direction. So I'm very happy about that.
I'm sure these were in your own words to say that it was useless.
Not right at the start.
So maybe passing over to you, Felix, because I also know that when you founded True Wealth, there was a bit of, and still is maybe a path you try to find between B2C, B2B. But in general, the question, when you look back to 2013, when you first started the company, how much has your product evolved since then?
Well, the core product has always been the same, so maybe we're lucky there. But as you said, we pivoted around like whom to sell it. So we wanted to be a B2C company, but we really started from scratch. And back in the days then, fintech was not a term in Switzerland, so we really had to get early adopters, so Googlers, also bankers. They understood quickly that that's a good product, but people were not that ready yet. So it took some time to grow, but we just grew from zero. And we always wanted to make investing as low cost as possible, because in the end, I used to be a portfolio manager and I care about returns. So that's why I want to have costs low. But also you need to have revenues. You need to pay your salaries. So we pivoted into B2B. So made it also a SaaS company. We did the two things. It took us a while to learn the sales cycle, so that would be the other topic. I'm not a sales, but then I learned it, and we even succeeded. We won one of the big tier 1 banks to get the product integrated into their e-banking. That was Erste Bank in Austria. But then later we just realized how big the complexity costs are when you have a bank or a big corporate as a client, and they have all the wishes, and then they're so complicated. But also culturally, you have to, as a company, at least for us, I realized we have to decide whether we want to be a product company, that's B2C, or whether you would want to be a service company servicing banks. And it's also different culture team-wise, and then we decided let's do B2C. So now we know what we want, so sometimes you need to clarify your strategy, because if you don't, then you create suffering.
So what was then the initial idea what you wanted to solve with your product then?
Well, that has always been making investing as simple as possible for people who have other hobbies, who want to spend their time with other things.
And then from then on, you really saw, okay, we can provide a tech product which can outperform what's currently on the market, and by building a great product, then you can outcompete it, basically.
Yes, but obviously you have to continuously invest in the product, which we're doing. Yeah. So initially I was on my own. We had external software companies, and now we have 25 people. So I also transitioned from being very much on my own to having a great team.
Yeah. How about you, Danielle, when you started off? I mean, your company is a very young age, founded in 2020. Would you say you're already in a pivoting stage from the initial idea you had, or you're still trying to tackle the market with that? We heard it actually in a previous session before, with the purpose you're trying to achieve there.
Yeah, I think for us it's been how do we spend our time the most wisely? And we started with regular people don't really always know all healthcare options. So I certainly didn't know about clinical trials until I was working for a pharma company, and basically had this moment of like, oh crap, there is some really cool medicine out there, and why does nobody know about this? So we started early on from the patient perspective or family members. So I'm looking for friends and family, aunts and uncles, things like that. And I'd say the only real pivot we've had has been, we were at a conference presenting what we have for patients, and a bunch of doctors just kept coming to us, and they were like, wait a second, like, this is awesome. Like, do we have a version? And we were like, what do you mean? I thought you guys knew this. And they were like, no, like, we're really having a hard time too. And so that was kind of our like, crap, that's a need too. So I'd say, I don't know if it's a true pivot, 'cause the core of the tech is there, but we ended up now kind of serving both sides of that. So that was one learning, and I think we're more trying to dodge bullets of like which way to go. So pivot in the right way. We've got a lot of feedback on that, like, avoid some certain integrations which take a lot of work, and can you survive to that point, and is the data good enough? So I think we're dodging more at this point.
Yeah. But you definitely saw that there was a need, and you were almost caught by surprise that hasn't been tackled a better way before, right?
Yeah, surprised, disappointed. Like
disappointed, yes.
Yeah, a lot of things there. I mean, it took me so long to start because I kept thinking, like, this is so obvious. Like, this is, like, healthcare and tech. This should be such a natural fit. Like, the impact you have on people's lives. Like, we shouldn't be depending on who's your doctor and, like, who do you just happen to know that you'll get good healthcare. So for me, I thought this was going to be standard thing. But then when you start to understand how crazy healthcare is, then you understand why there are some gaps. So there's a lot of sad lessons there.
Yeah. And you all are founders of digital native tech companies, though. So when you encounter all the issues and the problems out there, what was the instinct that you say tech is the vehicle to solve that? Maybe I'm starting with you, Andrea, because your story is, you had a tech problem first. So, how did you continue believing that tech is the problem to solve, for example, urban traffic issues?
Yes, for us, let's say, we work in a pretty special industry because parking is still I think it remained in the 70s in some way. Like the fact that you have to pay with a coin and a parking machine. This is still possible nowadays in Zurich. Like it baffles me completely. I don't get it, right? And also the fact that people just go by feeling also when they have to park. I do the same. When I go to Zurich city center, I just go by feeling, and I will go in a street and I hope that I will find something. And then we said, well, there should be really a way to handle this in a more efficient and modern way. And that's what we are, of course, starting. It's a long journey. It will be a long journey for us to try to modernize such an old business. But I think we are going in the right direction. That I see also when I talk to our clients, talk to our partners. But it is still a pretty long way to go. And I think I really don't see any other solution, going back to your questions, other than having some data in a digital format that you can easily distribute to the drivers, to the managers, so that they can also take informed decisions.
Yeah. Because we're all digital native here in this room, right? And it's so tempting to see or feel that, oh, digital is the vehicle to solve it, right? Have you seen any other options at that given time, or were you even told that there are other options at the given time to solve such problems?
Well, there are other options. We heard because we work in many countries, richer, poorer countries, and in some cases they told us, yeah, we have one person here at the crossroad, and then we call him, and he tells us manually which parking spaces are free. Like that's our solution. Or not to go too far, if you go to Europa Park in Germany, you go there and there is students that just guide you and tell you where to go and park. Right? So there are other ways if you want. And I believe that maybe if people reason just in a financial way, that might be even cheaper, because if they need such people for just a few days in a year, that can still work. But I don't think this is the right way to go.
Yeah. And in your case, that there was an industry already, but just very not advanced, and you saw that it really could be an acceleration of the problem-solving part. But for example, for you, Danielle, we had a few discussions around that already. There was no real approach to tackling that problem before, right? So how was it for you then to say that tech is the lever to go after that?
So maybe I'll start I got into tech back in Boston and I got into tech with a specialty in healthcare because I really thought, wow, this will help so many more people and equitable access to care. And the way you do or how you find clinical trial options now is you go to a website or you go to conferences or you call a friend and you say, hey, I have a patient here, breast cancer, this stage, do you know of anything? And so, yeah, as a tech person, you're like, that's not great. And when you're reading the registry, so I was looking for friends and family, and it's just a website with huge unstructured text. It's free form. There's a few fields that people sometimes use, mostly don't. And it's impossible. It's impossible to read through as a patient and really hard to read through as a physician. And so I just happened to be working in NLP before that. So when I hit that, it was like lights exploding. Like, no, we cannot do it this way. Like, this has to be NLP way. But the challenge is, NLP at that time was still pretty new. So a lot of people are like, yeah, great idea. We've all tried it and it failed. But I still think you have to be pretty specific about your approach and all those things. And I think there's a way, and we have a product so you can test yourselves. So I believe we found it. But it's just one of those things, we have to use tech to really liberate this information. It shouldn't be stuck in people's heads. That is what tech is for. And we should be doing this in one of the most important industries that we have.
Yeah. Felix, you said before, fintech, the term as such, wasn't born or wasn't defined in that way we know it today when you founded True Wealth. So also there, how much do you see, and it was, you can say it's quite visionary back then to say, let's use tech to make the finance industry a bit more efficient. So what was your aha moment to say tech is the way to go? Yeah.
I would say my situation was more like Andrea's parking problem. It was an existing problem. The parking problem has been out there for 100 years or so, and so was the wealth management problem. It's not that we deliver wealth management for the first time. It's been around for a very long time. But it was always obvious for us that you have to use tech there. The only question was, is it already solved in Switzerland? So before we started the company, Oliver and myself, we did some market research. So he was because he did a trade sale and he got some money to be invested, so that was a good occasion. He had to ask banks anyway, right, for an investment mandate. So I told him, let's look, I help you, show you where the hidden costs are, and I'm giving you my feedback, whether it's a good investment strategy or not. And the outcome was, it was all good investment strategies, was all solid, but in terms of digital, the best you could get was a PDF. Some sent it just in paper and others in PDF. But he really wanted to have something, an application to try and get a feeling of before signing a contract. And there was no such thing then. And then we founded the company, and a couple of years later, then we went live. And then the first reaction from banks and from relationship managers in banks was obviously, that doesn't make sense. People don't need that. Nobody wants that, right? People, people with money, they want to go to see a banker right at the desk. Yeah.
And I want to just pick that thought right there, because probably all of you have encountered this moment when you have built this product, you go out there, you pitch it, and you know it's going to solve a problem, but then you get the feedback and say, nobody needs that because the industry has come so far, or in your perspective, not far at all, but has come so far without the technology. We don't need that, right? So how did you deal with that feedback? What kept you going of saying, okay, no, there's actually a use case, and we need to tackle that?
Well, on my side, I think so. We really talked to a lot of people at the beginning, and the reaction were very diverse. So we had some people saying, well, this is not helpful, we don't need that. Some other were a bit more open, and some were very enthusiastic. So we said, well, let's start with the enthusiastic ones. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, I think that's really, of course, you have to talk to a lot of people. That's the most important point, because you will get diverse feedback, and then you try to trust your guts and also the ones that believe in you.
So it's interesting to hear even the product founders don't get by having to go out there and pitch and sell, right? But so moving on a little bit, because this is back to the profile of a product founder. Anyone who builds something struggles with the dilemma of when to continuously build and when to launch that product, right? So how do you balance that void of not working for too long on building something and actually going out there and pitch it? So maybe Danielle, what's your approach on that?
Yeah, I don't think I perfected that yet, but yeah, we really struggled with that, especially in healthcare. You can't really come out with an unfinished product, so it's one of those where you want it to be perfect. You know perfect's not going to happen, but you need to get something out there and you need to get feedback. And so for us, it was, let's start with really bad UX. Thankfully, no one will see that. I think that's buried officially. And they're like, just to see if the basics work, and then we were getting stuff out. But the hardest pieces, and we had a tech team from the start, it was, we have to focus on getting an MVP out, getting this feedback, iterating quickly, while knowing in the back of your head, like, yeah, crap, we really need to fix that later. like technical debt, your backlog's just like growing and the team's getting nervous. And they're like, this will break if we have 100,000 users. I'm like, that would be great, because that's a great milestone. So it was like, yeah, you have to keep the team calm. Yeah, rapidly see that you can't scale at a certain point, but you have to move it forward. And it's like, really focus on what's the value for the user. And for them, it's like, okay, we might not need the best performance in the world. We just need it to work. Like, they just need to get answers that make sense. So that was at least helpful to have a little bit of a guideline. But that's the part that keeps me up at night, is when you see the backlog and you're like, oh, that's going to hurt. You're like, it's really going to hurt someday.
Felix, you're smiling. So.
I'm just smiling because at some point I got the same feedback as Danielle. From the tech team, they told me it's not going to scale beyond a couple of thousand clients, right? And now we're beyond that number, but it's a luxury problem. You like to have the problem, and and then we had to spend about a year to refactor everything, because the backend was like Node.js, and then we refactored into a real Java. That was a big exercise, but you rather want to start with something and test the market. But you also need to identify where you want to make compromises and where you don't want to make compromises. For us, it was always important to have not a perfect, but something close to perfection in terms of the UX, and simplicity. but still feature-rich, but making it appear very simple.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. So I didn't want to compromise there.
Yeah. So basically, you just really focused on what is going to be your USP out there in the market. In this case, the user experience is going to be key to actually disrupt the fintech or any financial industry at that time, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because that is the actual problem. It wasn't just getting them a better portfolio in their hands, but actually giving them a better tool to manage that portfolio.
Yeah, and other problems like the scaling of the backend, you cross the bridge when you get there.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. While on the other hand, for you, Danielle, it was really that the accuracy of the outcome of your platform has to be void. Like it cannot be just like some kind of like Tinder mismatching and whatever. Like that would be horrific, right? Like if you identify the wrong kind of clinical trials for the wrong kind of patients. So UX probably in your case mattered a little bit less, right?
Yeah, and thankfully healthcare is not used to nice UX, so like very low standard. But I mean, for us also, it's like you work so hard to get to the point where you can even talk to doctors and hospitals. So you know that was like 6-8 months of your life to get in front of it. And like we always like prep the demo. We're like, please God, not now. Like so like all that investment, and you know you have one shot. And like that's the part where it's like we've really got to make sure everything is there. And yeah, UX for doctors. If you've ever seen an electronic medical record, yeah, it's like DOS. It's horrible. So yeah, we at least can skip on that part.
So really identifying where within the tech product you want to focus on your strength on, and taking that out to the market while pivoting the rest of it and improving while you get customer feedback. That's a really, I think, great insight also for all the other product founders out there who I heard this term once before, who call themselves or who might be identified as a wantrepreneur, who like to build something and has this dream, but then doesn't really follow through on the other business aspects, like bringing out the product to the market. So you're all the disruptors of your industry as you are today, but then shifting gears, looking a little bit to the future, right? Because no industry remains undisrupted forever. So when you look at your technology today, what you're building today, the problems you're solving today, what do you think in the future could be disruptors of your industries and of your company as you're building it today? And I'd like to pass that question to you, Felix, because we had a great discussion on it once before.
I think it's going to be technology again. So the obvious thing to do is to invest in technology. And we like to be a tech company, like 50% tech company, 25% asset manager, and then maybe you should be 25% a marketing agency. But just like as a hedge against disruption and to stay on the forefront. But to be more concrete, maybe voice will also play a more important role very long, like in 10 years or so, in wealth management, I could imagine.
Yeah, how could I play it out then? Like, so I can just speak to my assistant and on the phone?
Well, we started a long time ago, and then we really started desktop. We didn't start with a mobile version, and then later on we added a mobile version. But at some point there will be a third thing.
Yeah. Voice, as we heard before, very true to reality with maps, navigation. Probably also going to be advising you on your next big bet to place with your portfolio, right? And what about you, Andrea?
Well, on our side, I think it's going to be technology. I agree with the sentence. I think on our side, it's mostly the connected vehicles. And so at some point in the future, I'm sure this will happen, all the cars will be connected among themselves and also to other objects that are part of the street. And of course, the data that we provide will be quite easily available, but I think there is still quite a long way to go. And we have a few pivots in front of us before we get there.
A few coins machines still to replace. What about you, Danielle? You're still at the beginning of disrupting that industry, but what do you think could be something in the future where you like, this could be accelerating it even more?
Yeah, if medical records were ever better, that would be the great accelerator. But anyone working with that has seen it's just like a modern day ERP, so that, with less QC on it. But I think the big disruptor for our space would be when we finally get real personalized medicine, where it's testing you as a person and designing the treatment for you, specific for you. When we get to that point, hopefully we don't need clinical trials, and we'll be at a whole other beautiful place, but I think unfortunately we have a long way to go.
Yeah. So as we hear all these challenges and struggles, and especially for product founders, right, it's gut-wrenching to build your baby and then having to tear it apart and then tying up back together, bring out there, because in the previous episodes we heard from sales founders, we heard from founders who are really good in fundraising, right? So those are the sometimes very visionary people who go out there and pitch something, and I think for product founders it's very true that you felt every pain for pivoting your product because you understand the effort which has to go into to pivot the product. But and one more aspect I want to add to that, and Danielle, this is addressing to you because we had previous conversation in and around that as well, is a personal challenge around being a founder, because you don't not just only carry the head of a co-founder and CEO, you carry the head of a CTO as well. And we talked about it, and it was okay to discuss that here also on the panel, because you're a great ambassador of really pushing more female founders out there, especially female tech founders out there. So what are, if you don't mind sharing with us, what are other additional challenges you have to encounter with that image?
Yeah, unfortunately a few. And if there's any women starting companies as tech founders, please do it. And if you need any help, let me know. No, I think unfortunately it's a little different, and a couple things that I've seen is people don't immediately trust you as a technical founder or see you as the technical founder. And I've heard that in a couple of ways, either very obvious to your face or less so. So a few things are, I'll go in with a co-founder who's male, and we introduce ourselves. I'm the tech person, he's the marketing person, and then they start asking him about our models and our database, and he just kind of looking back at me, he's like, how did this get missed? I was like, okay. So he's always doing a good job of like, actually, like that's her. Or I remember we were meeting someone, we were really excited, it was a potential advisor, someone from ETH, like very well-known person, very excited to be introduced, and they were like, oh, here's Danielle, she's the technical founder. And all he said was, you don't look like a technical founder, you look like someone in AI. I was like, okay. And that was it, like he had nothing to say to me. So there's this, I think, this extra hump of if you're not what someone expects to see, and I think, unfortunately, this is also true for founders in general, then it's hard to just even get a basic trust or level of respect sometimes. But that's where I really encourage other women, start companies. There's some in here that are amazing, and I hope that's changing soon. But if anyone feels these pains, happy to have a therapy session. I have a few other women that we do this with. It's very helpful.
And I remember even from our conversations, like you're not just like the CTO and you understand tech, but I think every Friday you still sit down with your team and go down to the code, and you still code yourself today, right?
Yeah. We're a very small team.
So maybe if I just want to ask your view on it, Felix and Andrea, like, do you perceive it that way as well? Like, do we have a lack of female tech founders, and what's your perspective on it?
Well, on my side, I'm actually lucky because my co-founder, she's actually professor of computer vision in Singapore, and she used to be the CTO at the beginning of her journey. Now she's more of just an advisor. But I think we used to also do all the business meetings in two, and we had one more business-oriented postdoc and a tech-oriented PhD student at the time. But I think that sort of created trust, and it didn't really matter. We were just one male and female, but that both had a technical background, but still with a bit of business insight over time. I think reinforcing one each other was also very helpful. But I do agree that in certain industries, and then in parking is the same, it's still a very, very much male-dominated industry.
How was it when you did your master's in the ETH? In physics, like probably, when we start looking at the pictures there, like, was that already changing at your time, or would you say like this is what you witness and then later it carries on to the more tech side?
I wish we had more women in physics, and also more women at ETH in information technology. We have a team of about 9 software engineers, 2 of which are female. I think there's an opportunity out there. There's they're great women out there as employees and probably also as founders. And I think good people, also good men, they want to work, they have fun working with great women.
So you see that also in your teams and in the everyday life as well, because I remember you also have female engineers already on in your team.
Yes, we have 2 female engineers. Yes.
So diversity really is, you feel it also is as a result of the dynamics of the team and that you.
Well, I want when I hire a female engineer, I hire the female engineer not because she's female, I hire her because she's a great engineer. But they are great female engineers.
Yeah, and hopefully with role models like Danielle, we can attract even more, visibly seeing that this is possible and this is should be even the norm. So speaking of breaking stereotypes, I'm very excited to announce, and this is also part of the founder story format. Besides of the stories of our founders here, we always bring in a senior Google executive who have to some sort connections and experiences in that field. And the next guest I'm very happy to welcome on stage. Well, her fun fact is that she was studying Scandinavian history, was a college dropout. Until that point, you can say it's a typical tech career. Then started off as a receptionist in a SaaS company, but that's how she got foot. And now today, I'm very proud to say that she's leading our customer engineering team, serving all the European countries. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Emily Ryan.
Thank you.
Emily, welcome on stage.
Thanks.
So, Emily, your daily job is to help custom engineers, so usually the more technical colleagues, to work with digital native companies. So you must have seen a few tech or product founders in your day-to-day life. So.
Yes, yeah. And actually I came from, like I said, I went to a startup when I started my tech career. And then eventually at that company, I managed a spin-off, which was a startup on its own, where we tried to SaaSify their legacy product. So we turned it into containers, we launched it in the cloud, and we built all of the pieces around it. And we also had similar issues. It was kind of disrupting our own company, cannibalizing our own customers, and some deals ended up as a license sale deal at the end of the day with some managed service tacked on to the side. So yeah, I can see some of the challenges from my past, and then also working with startups and scale-ups across Europe North. So we see a lot of folks who sit on their product for a long time, really try to work it, make the tech really perfect, and when they're ready to go, then they could scale to those 100,000 customers, but actually they missed that product market fit along the way. So I think that it's hard to tell where that spot is, but there's a lot of ways to get that MVP out faster, leverage the democratized high service technology that's out there, like managed service, GKE autopilot and serverless, things like that, just to get something out, show it, get that feedback, and really iterate to make sure that you're going to be successful.
So launch and iterate is really what you see as a key challenge. So hearing the stories from our founders today, what would you say are 2 most common challenges you see again and again with other founders, other than the challenge of balancing launch and iterate itself?
Yeah, I think from the product side, actually tech is not the challenge. So you can leverage tech to its best availability, but probably the challenge is going to be with the people, maybe building the team, understanding who's responsible for what, hiring, retention. So it's surprising how many of those topics, don't hit the tech button, but are still maybe the CTO's responsibility.
So when it comes to the people, what we say then are the key factors then to get a great product built, if assuming product is the ultimate goal?
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier, so purpose. So what is the real goal of your product? And I think in the beginning, when you're small, it's probably pretty easy to keep everybody on board. And then once you start growing, figuring out, especially if you get a few of those big end users at the beginning, like your champion customers, not to necessarily follow them down the rabbit hole of all of the features that they specifically need, and customize, but pull back a little bit and keep remembering your main market and provide some ability to tweak things so people can make it work for them, but don't get too caught into being a unique product for one big end customer.
Mm-hmm. When I want to open this question to the whole panelists, though, because we all shared a perspective now today from being a product founder. We heard a lot about what not to do and to push it and restrain yourself from building for too long. But what would you say is your superpower over, for example, a sales or funding strong founder? Like, what would you say is one strength you can play because you know your product better than any other founders in the company or any other members out there? It's a difficult question.
I can start. I need to start with the challenge. So I think, especially in Switzerland, as a tech company, the challenge is to get a great team. Not only, but specifically the engineering part. It's super hard to get great software engineers in Switzerland. We always wanted to have it in Switzerland. We didn't want to have it near shore. And for this, you need to do something right. And I think now, after about 10 years, I think now I know. And I think it helps to be a product guy because software engineers, they're intrinsically motivated. And for them, it's super important to be able to identify with the product and see the purpose and the value behind the product, not just to make money, but for the end users. So you need to have a sound product that makes sense. But you also need to have an existing team of great people because great people want to join great people and they want to work with great people and learn from them and get inspired. And but also you need to have a modern code base. So that goes back to like this balance between going to market, investing in your product. If you don't invest in the backend for too long, right, then at some point you will push yourself out of the HR market. You will not get the best software engineers because for them it's different criteria. But one of them is also the stack. It has to be a modern stack.
Turning to Danielle and Andrea.
Well, on my side, I think so. Well, nowadays I'm of course talking mostly to other business people, with our clients, with our partners. But it always comes that point where they start asking a bit more technical questions. And the fact that I do have myself also a technical background, I know exactly what's happening in the code base, and I can usually answer without setting a second meeting with the CTO or with the software lead. That also helps a lot in speeding things up. And in our market, which is moving very, very slow, I think speed is very important. And being able to also handle that part helps a lot.
So immediately, because as a founder, you still have to go out there and pitch. So immediately knowing the answers of what's possible and not with your product, and don't go the risk of overselling stuff, which we heard in the first episode when we had sales founders, right? One of the hard learned lessons was when they pitched products and then it came back to them and then they realized, oh, we actually have to pivot a heck of a lot more than what we actually promise out there to our customers. So being a product founder, you know exactly what we can deliver and what more we can push to get to that target, what the customer would like to do. Danielle, I'd like to close off with you. Speaking of superpower, I couldn't start anywhere with a larger list of what superpowers you must have. But what would you say to all the founders out there is your superpower, and what would you encourage other people to be when they're product founders?
So unfortunately, I think my superpower is stubbornness, which is, yeah. So it's one of those, like, we talked about, like, when you get bad feedback or someone says something on your product, all of those are like daggers to your heart. So it's like, how do you keep your head up and be like, no, I'm on the right path? And for me, it's like I save like patient stories or feedback that they gave me. And I think, I'm lucky I'm in healthcare and like I can see that impact. So for me, like, it's like, okay, I had a really shitty week. It's like, but I was like, we had this one person who we helped, and like, that is everything. And I even set up sometimes calls with the patients that we work with, and we just like talk for 2 hours, and like, we're like encouraging each other. I'm like, you can do it. They're like, you can do it. It's like, but yeah, that stubbornness is so important, because it's like every day is just so full of challenges. And I mean, I'm lucky I have a like amazing team that also keeps me in line, which is also very important. But that stubbornness has been a very good and tricky trait that's helped me.
Yeah. All very great superpowers. Emily, maybe one last comment of any superpower you have not seen yet, but you think product founders truly have that in them.
Well, I guess this could apply to the sales folks and the funding folks as well, but I think on the tech side, you also need the network to support you. So there is your company, your co-founders, or your peers who are maybe showing you what is that next technology, like how can you disrupt yourself, how can we be constantly evolving our tech stack and making sure that we're attracting the best talent and, getting rid of that tech debt in a cool way. So I think a network like this, especially from the technical side, that's a superpower.
Great. Before we close off, I definitely want to give the audience a chance also to ask any burning questions you have had today from this great discussion, which you would like to throw in there. And please raise your hands if you have any questions to any of our panelists today, which you would like to add. And I see one person and one hand in the back, and in fact this wasn't, who those seen the past episodes, it's not just a logo, but it's actually a microphone, so I'm going to throw it to you, and I will ask your neighbors also to help you a little bit. And here we go, 1, 2, 3. There we go. It's a very soft cube, don't worry.
Good. So thank you very much for sharing all the experiences. I think that this can help us to build our companies. My question is, how long did it take for you guys to know that it was the right time to pivot? And what was that signal that made you say, this is the time, I am not giving up on my baby, but it is the time to really go and look in a different direction?
Too long.
Yeah, on my side, I think it was, again, as I said before, mostly a matter of feedback. So when you start talking to people and you keep receiving the same answer, then it's probably a good time to change your mind a little bit.
Yeah, I can also just add, we've seen a lot of customers who pivoted, even if they were already successful when COVID came, of course. So sometimes adverse circumstances then help you take a step back and maybe realize that your product could also work in another market where it could even be more successful. But it's hard to predict when that happens.
But as Andrea said, when people tell you and that they don't feel well about this, like for instance, in our case, we had these 2 strategies, and my CTO at the time, he told me that he doesn't see a future of doing both. I should have taken him seriously more quickly.
But it's hard, right? It's hard when you see the baby coming up and you see the potential also.
Well, sometimes you have other constraints too, like financial constraints. Like maybe you have to cut off like an arm of your business that generates revenues, right? So that's a difficult decision.
Because you also wear the hat of a founder, right? And you have to run the company. Very, very great question. Thank you very much. We have one question here in the front line. So you have the pleasure of throwing the cube again.
Nice catch.
Thanks. Hello everyone. My name is Yodali. I'm a founder for Sustainable FinTech, and my question is related to marketing. How much of your total budget, and I know this might be confidential, but give a range, is going to marketing, and how do you know how much is too much when going into marketing expenditure?
Well, I answer as a product guy. Very little, probably too little. Yeah, especially at the beginning. I think when we were building up the product, I think we didn't really look enough into how to promote it sufficiently. So we just did the organic stuff like posting on LinkedIn, Twitter. Then we started to realize that in some industries, it's also very useful to actually be there and go to specific events where everyone is there. And now I'm an expert of parking events, which I would never. But still, I think even now, I don't know, maybe 10% of the total yearly budget goes to marketing. At the beginning, it was less than 5 for sure.
I don't know, from a healthcare perspective, I don't know if this is helpful. Also too little. I think that was, we're like, oh, if it's great, people will come. That is not true, no. And but then we wasted too much money on Google ads, and it's very hard to find who's a cancer patient. Yeah, no offense, sorry. They're really great.
Luckily, it's a Google Cloud event today.
Sorry, maybe edit that part out.
That's okay.
But conferences are helpful, and I think we're down to only like 5 or 10%. But also, I think once you start to get a certain level, then it's like peer starts to take off a little bit. And for smaller industries or closer industries, that's really helpful. So I don't know. I wish we started a little bit more, and now it's kind of naturally growing. So I don't know. That helps.
Google Ads did work for us.
Your B2C.
Yes, yes. But there's only so much inventory in Switzerland, because for us, Google Ads, it's like for people already down in the funnel who already know what they want. And then, I mean, you want to get those, but you want to get more in marketing. Marketing is also product in the end, and you cannot really see it as a product as well. And actually, we always decide things from a customer perspective and from a marketing perspective. So whenever we decide whether we want to have that feature, also think about whether you can use it in marketing. But I don't know, I think the ratio of how much you spend on marketing, that depends on your situation, on your industry, difficult to say. But look at the customer acquisition costs and try to get an understanding of the customer lifetime value. And then you have different channels, and you have to experiment. And when a channel, the customer acquisition cost goes too high, then you stop spending too much on that. But if you want to scale your business, you have to master marketing as well. No investor will give you money if you have no experience, no expertise in how to scale it with marketing. So that would be my advice.
And I actually like the question because it's actually giving a pass to what's coming up next. Because in the December episode, we actually will be talking about marketing. So we will have founders on stage talking about their superpower in marketing. And it's good to hear also from founders to understand that the vehicle of how to move your company, but more to come on the 1st of September also in that founder story episode. I'd like to allow one more question from the audience. You see the brains are really started floating and questions are coming in. So do we have a closing question from the audience?
Come on.
Now I've built the pressure because it's the last question.
Here
and we have one gentleman over there.
Thanks. My name is Mateusz. My question will be like, what was the biggest challenge regarding the HR and the firing? I mean, not about employing, because getting somebody on board, it's easy, everybody knows that. But if you're doing tech and then you need to fire somebody after 3 months and he just find out everything about your business, or she, you're building something in medtech that's even more
terrifying.
Yeah. So how you deal with that?
Can I start? I have some experience here. Okay, here's where I will plug Google. We're really careful about what we share for that exact reason, and it's like I'm very we lock down roles a lot because you just don't know, and a couple of people. I mean, hiring is hard. Hiring is super hard, and unfortunately in tech, you're also usually desperate. So it's like not always the greatest. Things happening at the same time. So we did have to let someone go. It was like poor coding, poor performance for a small team, so you can see it quite easily. And the biggest thing you're scared of is like, are they going to take this code base and go somewhere else? Or like, where are they going to put this? Or if they have access to your user database. So it's, for us, it was just like, or for me at least, it's like, how do we let this person go? No hard feelings. And very much reiterating that, you know, we're watching, and if I see anything on the internet, I will absolutely note you. So it's super hard, and you know, I don't know. We're also, when you're desperate too, you're like, maybe it'll work, or like maybe if I just coach him a little more, like he'll get there. But at some point, you have to call it, and then when you choose to call it, you have to be really careful about how you call it and having that conversation. So. Yeah, unfortunately, it's super hard. And also hiring is super hard. We were actually just talking about that. Had some people with like fake profiles come after you, and try to sell amazing skills that, you know, fit exactly what you're looking for. And then when you ask for the code, that's always where it gets really interesting. You're like, wow, 4 different languages in the comments, like German, English, Spanish. You're like, interesting. You're either really multilingual, like, or something's going on here. So anyway, that's my experience.
Yeah, I think one thing I can add, adding to what Danielle said, is that it's also very important to recognize this fast, because of course engineers are very expensive, and you are, as a small company, you cannot really afford to have someone non-productive. We did this mistake, so we had to let a couple of people go over the years, but we just recognized it too late. So on one side you lose time because these people are not productive, and also, I mean, at the start of the contract, especially in the first month, the notice period is very short, and then the longer the person stays, the longer this period goes. So we tried a couple of times, but maybe if we insist, this will work. But no, as soon as you have a flag, then it's time to act, I think. So this is a mistake that I think people can avoid if they recognize such, problems immediately.
I can just stress that hiring is extremely important and takes time. It's difficult, and so is firing. Both is important. But when you have to fire, you have to do it. When I know I have to do that, it keeps me sleepless for a couple of weeks. It's really painful. But so even more so, take your time when you hire. And sometimes when you know you have no time, then first finish that project and then hire, or delegate it. I always delegated hiring of the engineers to the engineering team. They've always been super choosy and selective, and we never had the situation where we had to let go someone in the engineering team. But maybe I think they're doing a great job there.
Yeah, the only thing I can add is maybe on that point, because we talked in the last episodes about cultural fit versus cultural add. So sometimes, like hires like. So just always be looking for the best candidates, but remember that there are some biases involved.
Thank you very much, Matthias, for the great question. And in fact, also, while we have a marketing coming up in December, we also have a people session specifically coming up again, where we have founders on stage who share more deeply about what their experiences they have gone through selecting, building the right teams through great people. But this is a topic obviously not just isolated, but every founder has to deal with that. And sometimes it comes some gut-wrenching moments where probably the company doesn't even know about it, but only founders will understand it. So thank you very much all for sharing your stories. And I would like to thank you all as well coming here today to participate, learn, and hopefully building this community and thriving it even more in the future. And one way you can thank us back, in fact, is actually giving us your feedback. I would like to take just a quick 1 minute here where you can take out your phones and then scan this QR code. By the way, I love the dinosaur in the middle. You might see it from some browsers sometimes. And scan it. It takes just a couple of seconds to give your feedback, because again, it was that feedback, in fact, in the past, in the first 3 episodes, who let us grow this community to what it is today. So it's really, really valuable. So at this point in time already, thank you very much.
Do you need some music? We need some Jimi Hendrix.
Do we have There we go. Good. Maybe we're going to give you a couple more seconds. First of all, most and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the great panelists today. Big round of applause. In a second, you're all going to be released to the drinks and little canapes we have prepared for you, what you saw already in the entrance. We hope you're going to mingle there even more so, because again, we don't just have 4 superpowers here on the stage, we have a room full of superpowers. And in fact, how to best identify those superpowers, we have prepared some stickers there at the little table at the exit of this door. And our colleagues actually are holding them up. Thank you very much, Kevin and Sarah. And so when you go out, take a sticker of a superpower you think this is going to be yours, stitch it onto your guest badge, so when you have a drink, when you have a bite, you can talk to anyone and you already know what's the superpower be. Either you find likes or you find other people who can help you to fill the gaps where you want to learn more from others. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for attending episode number 4 today. Have a great evening and hope to see you soon again in the next episode in October. Thank you very much.